Hello, welcome to Peace Through Truth. Now it's been quite a few days since I've been able to actually sit down and make a video, partly because I've been behind on the farm and partly because the few times that I've had topics that I really wanted to cover, it seemed as though some of the most popular alternative media channels on YouTube had already covered them. So in an attempt to not tread over the same ground, I chose to go back about a week or so and dig up some news stories that were really bothering me for particular reasons and go over some ulterior motive agenda behind some of these news pieces and possibly maybe even point out some bullshit while we're at it. So anyway, if you'll join me, why don't we get right to it? Alright guys, I had originally remembered skimming through this article from BBC US and Canada that claimed the FBI in the US had identified the masked militant in the beheading videos. This article basically just said that James Comey came out and said that they knew who Jihadi John from the James Foley beheading videos and the Stephen Sotloff beheading videos was, but they weren't going to tell us. I thought it was kind of bullshit at the time because, you know, from what I had seen, there was only about 6 minutes of footage, and, you know, it sounded like they're using some kind of voice cover-up device, so I didn't really know how they could have ID'd him. Then, a couple weeks later, October 8th, the FBI wants help identifying ISIS jihadist in execution video. Now, this was a 55-minute video. And the video over here with Jihadi John was, you know, the beheading videos was like, what, 6-8 minutes of footage? So I thought that was bullshit, and I wanted to look into that. As soon as I started to look into that, 30 seconds later, I found out that Jihadi John was allegedly this British rapper guy, and, you know, besides being a complete and total douchebag, basically that's how the FBI ID'd him. So right there, that kind of torpedoed any kind of, you know, idea I had for making a video on the topic. Alright, for some reason I just could not help myself. I had to click on this 2-minute clip to see what the FBI had to say about helping them identify the possible American jihadists. So I feel like this is actually an important clip to the rest of my video.
Tonight, the FBI is asking for the public's help identifying this jihadi speaking fluent English in an ISIS propaganda video. For weeks, the FBI has been using facial recognition and voice analysis, trying to trace his accent and comparing what they find to other Americans the intelligence community has been watching. FBI Director James Comey told 60 Minutes there are about a dozen Americans currently fighting in Syria, but he's even more worried about the Americans not currently on his radar.
I don't know what I don't know.
The effort is part of a broader public appeal by the FBI to identify Americans seeking to join jihadist groups fighting overseas. It comes on the heels of a 19-year-old Chicago man arrested Saturday. CNN has learned that Mohammed Khan wasn't on the FBI's radar until very recently.
Without this digital footprint, I don't think this young man would have come on our radar screen at all.
The FBI says Khan was in contact with someone online who was allegedly trying to help him get into Syria to fight with ISIS. When police arrested Khan at Chicago O'Hare's International Airport, FBI agents were simultaneously searching his house, where Khan's family members refused to talk to reporters. Notebooks found inside Khan's home also indicated he paid $4,000 for a round-trip ticket, flying from Chicago to Vienna, Austria, then into Istanbul, Turkey.
It tells me, probably, that he was trying to evade being caught by purchasing a round-trip ticket versus a single one-way ticket, by spending more than the El Cheapo ticket you can get, and also by not going direct, so that he is more likely than not.
Alright, so pretty much immediately after watching that 2-minute clip, it became apparent to me that although they were using a Muslim character, and they were, in this instance, saying that this Muslim was going to travel to Syria attempting to join ISIS to fight, it became pretty apparent to me that really this was programming. They were subconsciously just programming you to want to watch and rat on your neighbor because your neighbor might be flying to Syria to fight, and so on and so forth. If you read between the lines, that is really what's going on here, because they only spend, the title to this video is FBI wants help identifying ISIS jihadists in execution video. So you click on it and you think they're talking about Robert Downey Jr. here. You have no clue that really the whole bulk of the 2-minute piece is going to be on you actually watching everybody for people going to Syria, which is in turn you watching all your fellow American neighbors. So that's something to keep in mind, guys. Alright, after realizing that it was just another standard, train your own homegrown Gestapo piece, I decided to look a little bit more into the guys that were the supposed experts for the story there. Starting with, we'll go with Stimson here. Good old Cully Stimson, born in '63, is a former American career appointee at the Pentagon. Stimson was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainee Affairs. Basically a boss warden, basically, right? He resigned February 2nd, 2007, following controversy about his statements on legal representation for prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. It says here Stimson first received press attention in October 2006 when he told Reuters that more than 300 Guantanamo detainees might remain there for the rest of their lives because nations refused to accept them. In January 2007, he made comments concerning the legal representation of Guantanamo detainees, stating that corporate CEOs, seeing this, should ask firms to choose between lucrative retainers and representing terrorists. That's nice. The Pentagon later issued a statement that Mr. Stimson's comments were not representative of the Pentagon policy. On January 17, 2007, Stimson wrote a letter of apology published in Washington Post. His apology was criticized by the New York Times in an editorial for the appearance of insincerity. Yeah, well, go figure, right? It says here Stimson is currently a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation and an instructor at the Naval Justice School in Newport, Rhode Island. In September 2010, he authored a report entitled Just Say No, asserting that California's proposed Regulate, Control, and Tax Cannabis Act of 2010 would worsen the state's drug problems, addiction, violence, disorder, and death. Yeah. Anyway, Stimson continues to write on detainee issues. On October 17, 2011, Stimson called for the U.S. Congress to reaffirm the original authorization to use military force from the fall of 2001. And of all that information, I believe that is by far the most important. Okay, I'm certainly going to go further into this authorization to use of military force, but I figure since I'm already talking about Cully Stimson, I might as well finish off the little piece on Cully Stimson. So he works for the Heritage Foundation after being the Deputy Assistant Director for Detainee Affairs for every prison in Afghanistan, Iraq, Guantanamo Bay, all of them. Anyway, go to the Heritage Foundation, and it's kind of funny. The first thing that pops up on their website, Ebola, the basics. You got to know the basics. The spread of the Ebola virus raises public health concerns in the United States and abroad. Yeah, that's the number one thing on everybody's agenda. That's kind of why I'm doing this piece, trying to go back to the ISIS into the home front thing. Anyway, looking for Cully Stimson, did a search. Cully Stimson comes up. Widely recognized expert in national security, homeland security, and crime control, a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation since 2007. Stimson became manager of the National Security Law Program in Heritage Davis's Law Institute for International Studies in April 2013 after serving as Heritage's Chief of Staff for a year. Stimson has written and lectured on policy issues such as military detention and commissions of intelligence and in criminal law, including the Patriot Act and I.S.I.S, immigration, and the war on drugs. As Chief of Staff to then Heritage President Edwin J. Fulner, he was a key advisor on public policy matters as well as manager of Fulner's office staff and Heritage day-to-day operations. Stimson's many research papers, op-eds, and articles include the special report Adult Time for Adult Crime, Heritage's comprehensive study on the constitutionality of life sentences for teenage murderers. His work on criminal and immigration law has been cited in briefs before the U.S. Supreme Court. Before joining the think tank in 2007, Stimson served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainee Affairs. He advised then Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld and coordinated the Pentagon's global detention policy and operations, including at Guantanamo Bay and in Iraq and Afghanistan. He was chairman of detainee-related panels such as the Defense Senior Leadership Oversight Committee. He represented the United States before the UN in Geneva, Switzerland, and briefed and testified before both houses of Congress. An accomplished trial lawyer, Stimson worked as a prosecutor at the local, state, and federal levels, where he concentrated on violent crimes such as homicide, sexual assault, and domestic violence. He also served as a military prosecutor and defense counsel. He continues to serve with the rank of captain as executive officer of the Reserve Trial Judiciary and as a military trial judge. Stimson's thousands of media interviews and appearances include Fox News Channel, MSNBC, CNN, BBC, and NPR. He has been quoted by most major newspapers, including the Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and London Times. All garbage. A businessman and educator by training, Stimson is vice chairman of his family's real estate company in Seattle. Before joining the Defense Department in 2001, he was a vice president at a global financial services and insurance brokerage. This guy has his hand in everything. Stimson holds a law degree from George Mason University School of Law. He's a graduate from Kenyon College and studied at Harvard and Exeter Universities. How many lives does this guy have? An avid runner and triathlete, he serves on the board of the U.S. Soccer Foundation. Now, U.S. Soccer Foundation, guys, that's also, I can't say that it's a known CIA front, but any kind of organization done by a guy like this, where they can front a charity to get their foot in the door to gather any kind of intelligence in any kind of geopolitical scenario, they do, all right? They do it. Just because he might not look like James Bond, doesn't mean that he's not being used to gather intelligence. I'm not saying he's a spy. I'm just saying that through just going someplace. Anyway, whole other issue, whole other video possibly someday. So anyway, Charles Coley Stimson, the expert from the Heritage Foundation, the real estate guy, the lawyer, the damn detainee affair deputy assistant director of detainee affairs for the Pentagon. This guy, yeah, that is a fantastic resume. But how the hell do you do any of that professionally and still take all your other professions serious, right? I don't think you do. I think this guy here is probably just well connected. He did his work in school, busted his ass, and now he's just a government mouthpiece. He says whatever he needs, whatever they need him to say, and he does the reports that they need him to do, like all that BS for the cannabis law in California. When all the reports and all the science and everything that's been done on it, they say that it's a lot better to increase treatment for drug use instead of, throwing people in prison for non-violent drug crimes. But this guy wants prison time. Why? Because he's obviously connected with people, through Roosevelt and the Pentagon, through all the detainee programs connected to the prison system to get more, more prisoners the better. More prisoners, more money. So anyway, that's one angle. This guy has every reason to lie to you. He's getting paid to. And then we go back to the Heritage Foundation here. You below the basics. But what is right there on the front page of their website? A framework for an authorization for use of military force against ISIS. Alright, a framework for an authorization for use of military force against ISIS. Now, basically, this is their way of getting out of having Congress vote to have us go to war. They used this same thing the last few times. This is basically a ditto from the 2001 September 11th attacks. They basically are just trying to use the same document, and they're saying that if we can't use the same document, if ISIS doesn't fall under the category of those terrorists, that we should draft our own. And let's see here. All right. First and foremost, Congress must closely analyze whether ISIS could fall under the 2001 AUMF. In other words, given the historical ties between ISIS and Al-Qaeda, do they fit into the narrow class of targets that fall under the 2001 AUMF? If they do, as a legal matter, there may be no need for a standalone congressional authorization for use of force against ISIS. So they're trying to decide whether or not they need to ask Congress for permission, basically, to go to war. It says here that assuming, for the sake of argument, that ISIS is not included in the narrow class of targets that fall under the 2001 AUMF, then an AUMF designed specifically to confront and defeat ISIS would be required. Oh, no big deal. If we don't have that, we'll just make our own. Make another one, right? Such an AUMF should define in its preamble the vital interests at stake that make the use of U.S. force necessary, and make clear that the goal is to protect the homeland and drive ISIS out of Iraq, thus diminishing the potential for a regional sectarian conflict. I hate when they call the U.S. homeland. It's like Nazi Germany, but like fatherland and whatnot. It's terrible. It's America. It's the U.S. Come on. Why can't we just call it the U.S.? What happened to calling it? Anyway, an ISIS-specific AUMF should include the analytical components of a congressional use of force authorization. Like methods and resources, Congress should authorize the use of all necessary and appropriate force. 2, the only targets of this force should be ISIS, and this is the biggest part, and any group that might succeed ISIS. You see it right here. Any group that might succeed ISIS. Now, guys, this is a one-up of their original AUMF to fight terrorists, because they're saying that, okay, well, ISIS might not fall under that AUMF, so we're going to need one that is going to not only let us fight ISIS, as well as our old one that can help, for the people that were supposedly, allegedly responsible for the 9/11 attacks. But this one will help us engage any group that might succeed ISIS. Now, anybody that is either awake or has, been aware that we're losing our rights, knows that the real enemy, the people that the government really see as the enemy, is the well-informed citizen, right? And it's always like they always go after your far right-wing guys, the guys that, are really out there waving their flags and toting the guns. They always, I guess, they paint themselves as a bigger target, so they always get the heat. But that this is who they're talking about. Any group that might succeed ISIS. Any group. Any group. So it doesn't matter if it's the Red Hat ladies that get together for, Sunday coffee at the Red Robin or whatever you got. Or it could be disgruntled veterans. It could be, Black Panther Party. It doesn't matter. Any group that might succeed ISIS. So if you go back to the CNN piece, and you look at what they're getting into, they're basically, they're asking you to report on your neighbor. He might be going back to Syria, you never know. And then subconsciously at the same time, while you're getting on board with that, you don't realize that you're supporting this guy in all the legislation that him and the the Heritage Foundation are pushing. So you are subconsciously, inadvertently, not knowing, supporting them getting this authorization for use of military force, but that authorization could very well be the same authorization that they could literally legally drop a bomb on your car for not agreeing with them politically. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line, and they will do it. That's the reason why. That's the reason why they're making this getting this in writing. And it's very important that we just look past the CNN bullshit, because it's all, it's sugarcoating. They're using this guy's quotes, and they're using him, and this is what he's pushing. This is the stuff that he wants, and that's not even the worst part of it. You get over to James Comey. You go back to James Comey, the FBI director, and it says here, born 1960, he's the seventh and current director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He was the United States Deputy Attorney General, serving in President George W. Bush's administration. As Deputy Attorney General, Comey was the second highest-ranking official in the United States Department of Justice and ran the day-to-day operations of the department, serving in that office from December 2003 through August 2005. He was a U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York prior to becoming the Deputy Attorney General. In 2003, as Deputy Attorney General, Comey appointed the U.S. Attorney General in Chicago, close friend, Patrick, Special Counsel to the CIA grand jury investigation. After Attorney General John Ashcroft recused himself in August 2005, Comey left the DOJ and he became General Counsel and Senior Vice President of Lockheed Martin in 2010. In 2010, he became the General Counsel of Bridgewater Associates. So, guys, the director of the FBI is a former Senior Vice President of Lockheed Martin. Do you think he has any stock in Lockheed Martin? And if you click on Lockheed Martin, this is the very company that they're using to do most of their dirty work. They're spying, and Lockheed Martin is an American global aerospace defense security and advanced technology company with worldwide interest. It was formed by the merger of Lockheed Corporation with the Martin Marietta. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze there. In March 1995, it is headquartered in Bethesda, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. area. Lockheed Martin employs 116,000 people worldwide. Lockheed Martin is one of the world's largest defense contractors, guys. In 2009, 74% of Lockheed Martin's revenues came from military sales. It received 7.1% of the funds paid out by the Pentagon. So it got 7.1% of the Pentagon's money. The director of the FBI, he's got stock in this company. Anyway, sorry. Lockheed Martin operates in 5 business segments. These comprise aeronautics, information systems, and global solutions, missile and fire control, mission systems and training, and space systems. In 2009, U.S. government contracts accounted for $38.4 billion foreign government contracts, $5.8 billion in commercial and other contracts, and $900 million in both 2009 and 2008. The company topped the list of U.S. federal government contracts. The company has received the Collier Trophy 6 times, including in 2001 for being part of developing the X-35 fan propulsion system, and most recently in 2006 for leading the team that developed the F-22 Raptor fighter jet. Lockheed Martin is currently developing the F-35 Lightning II. Okay, so besides there being an incredible conflict of interest here. I mean, yeah, he's got a great resume, but James Comey, being a former director of Lockheed Martin, probably shouldn't be the head of the FBI, in my opinion, because he's got every, reason to want to sell more stuff made by Lockheed Martin, right? It says here, Lockheed Martin is active in many aspects of government contracting. It received $36 billion in government contracts in 2008 alone, more than any company in history. It now does work for more than 24 government agencies, from the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy to the Department of Agriculture and the Environmental Protection Agency. It's involved in surveillance and information processing for the CIA, the FBI, Internal Revenue Services, the National Security Agency, the Pentagon, the Census Bureau, and the Postal Service. In 2013, Lockheed announced it expected to finalize a $2.2 billion contract with the United States Air Force for 2 advanced military communications satellites. So this company, they do anything and everything you would want to do in information gathering, from information gathering to actually blowing up the target you're gathering information on, okay? Which is obviously a great trait to have. I mean, I guess you want someone with the FBI experience, but James Comey, wow, conflict of interest, buddy, big time. And then he became the general counsel at the Bridgewater Associates. Bridgewater Associates is an American investment management firm founded by Ray Dalio in 1975. The firm serves institutional clients including pension funds, endowments, foundations, and foreign governments and central banks. So this firm, they take other people's money and then they invest that money into a company, right? So if the Bridgewater Associates know that the Pentagon is going to invest $38 billion into Lockheed Martin that year, it's a pretty good investment to invest in Lockheed Martin, right? So, James Comey, you're a scumbag, buddy. You are literally the epitome, a poster child for inside trading. That's like the rigging the stock market right there. Do I have to really go into detail as to why this is wrong? I mean, yeah, the guy obviously has credentials, right? But senior vice president of Lockheed Martin. Okay, yeah, great credentials. You ran a huge company with government ties. But now that you're actually on CNN saying that we need to go drop bombs on these people, because your company is the one that makes the bombs and the satellites that track the targets to drop the bombs and the fucking jets that drop the bombs. So a huge conflict of interest between Cully being just a government puppet, does 30 different things for a profession, says whatever needs to be said because he's a pro, to old Jim over here, old Lockheed Martin Jim, Bridgewater Jim. It's disgusting. This isn't news. This isn't a news report. These guys are ensuring their survivability. They're ensuring money for them. They're ensuring success for their corporations and the companies that they work for. They're not trying to protect you. They're not trying to protect your families. They're actually, with their authorization, framework for an authorization for use of military force against ISIS, they're actually going to be legally allowed to fight you because they can fight any group that might succeed ISIS. So if they start getting really out of hand with this government shit and they really start coming after, people that own firearms or, it doesn't matter. They'll go after one group at a time. They're setting it up. They're setting it up for failure. And then to top it all off, guys, the best part, the those of you that are still with me, all of you guys that hung in through all the BS, the best part is right here. Now, everybody's been using this still shot of Robert Downey Jr. here. Everybody's been using this shot at this angle, and you know, obviously the reason for that, they say, is because it shows the most detail of him. Now, I think it's because this is the shot that probably looks the most real of the whole video, of this whole 3.5-minute clip. Now, little disclaimer, there is a scene in this Flames of War video that was allegedly released by ISIS that does appear to show some sort of executions of soldiers. It was shot at night, it was in the back of a truck, and, you know, under those conditions it's extremely easy to fake stuff, but this was pretty graphic and it looked fairly real. This segment, however, does not look real to me, alright? This 3.5 minutes that is on LiveLeak, I will leave a link below to the actual video in case this video clip is not showing the videos that I'm trying to show correctly. I'll leave that link. But anyway, this whole thing looks like they use green screen again to me. They kind of cover their ass by having the background have tall buildings, because that way they can kind of account for the way the shadows are. But that being said, I still think this is all green screen, this whole video, for several different reasons, and I'll show you why right here. Now, this is like the freeze frame that just about everybody is using on the news, whether it be CNN, Fox News, or, you know, one of your pseudo alternative media outlets that is covering it. All these guys are just using this shot of this Robert Downey Jr. from Tropic Thunder right here. So anyway, it looks pretty convincing, right? In this shot, it looks legit because of the way everything's set up, how everything in the background's out of focus and all that. But it really does seem like it's green screen to me. I honestly think it is, and you know, here, just a few seconds later, the 12-second mark, again, it looks like he is standing in front of a green screen. It looks like this is studio lighting. Obviously, they're trying to make it seem as though it's sunset, as you can tell later on in the clip when they go to do the actual execution part of this video clip. The sun is actually down, and they don't have this yellow glow. But anyway, I believe that there's probably a green screen, probably starting somewhere like right in this area here, probably runs right along this dirt mound. And this is probably all green screen from a studio, or, you know, possibly, I mean, it can be done a lot of different ways, but that's my belief. I think they're standing in front of a green screen, and this dirt is just in a studio somewhere. Or it might be out in a parking lot, and they just have a big green sheet draped over the back, you know? Anyway, 38-second mark. They do a sideways shot. Here you can see that the sun, or the light, or whatever, is on the front of this flagpole, or this power pole, rather. But there's no light actually on these buildings. You know, if you look in the background here, it's not a blue sky. It's straight gray, which would indicate some overcast, I suppose. But then they're getting all this nice, crisp sunlight. So there's visual discrepancies there. It really does look like they could be using another break here. This could be another green screen. This could be another green screen, and this could actually be in the studio. They do multiple layers at times. I've seen that done several different ways. Here, this gentleman who's supposedly digging his own grave, all right, he's like the main spokesperson for the captive prisoners that are supposedly about to be executed. And he's mic'd up, just like we saw in the James Foley beheading videos. He went through the trouble of bringing a mic in, just so you can get that studio quality sound. And, you know, if you don't, good to go along with the studio quality lighting, at least, nothing else. Here, he really, as he's going on in his speech, he really looks like he's reading off a cue card. Obviously, could be expected in a hostage situation, but at the same time, I think it's just there because he is an actor. It does look like he's literally, from there up anyway, it looks like it's a green screen. That dirt is probably obviously real, but I really think that there's maybe a green screen behind these dirt mounds. And this flag here is really suspect. In all these shots, the flag is blowing at the exact same clip, like they've got the wind machine set to 15 miles an hour or something, and it's blowing directly on that flag. And to be honest with you, that flag looks completely fake to me. It looks as fake as this, brush here. Now, like I said, it's my belief that there's probably a green screen behind this dirt mound here, behind wherever the gentleman's standing on, behind the backpack, somewhere. Whether it starts there or behind this wall, I don't know. But I just personally think that it's a green screen. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm only human, guys. It does happen. But I will leave a link for this video in case it doesn't play. But I do want to play just a few seconds of it if I can get away with it. See that flag?
And we're here with the soldiers of Bashar. You can see them now digging their own graves in the very place where they were stationed. The very place where they were stationed, terrorizing the Muslims in Raqqa.
The way that flag's waving behind them.
The Hukm of Allah is going to be carried out on these same soldiers by the brothers from the Muhajirin and Ansar that captured them. And behind them you can see the officers' residence filled with blood and artillery.
And here, it really does look, these buildings just look out of scale to me. Like I already mentioned, the lighting on the front of this pole, but there is no real lighting coming in the side of these buildings. The wind, is just a perfect, steady clip. And then here, again, all this up top to me looks like it's green screen. Now, this flag just looks fake. It looks like they just put it in with a computer, which would really go along with what I think they're using. I think they're using ridge lines to do green screen, but could be wrong. Our mic guy. I mean, it just looks like it's in a studio to me. And then in this shot here, the flag is actually blowing. This would be towards the buildings. If it's the same flag in all these shots. So it was blowing in this direction at first, but in this shot, looking at these guys, the flag is actually blowing towards the buildings, which is, different than what is happening here. So I don't, in my opinion anyway, I tried to back this up. I tried to actually do a bunch of different research in different ways. I got myself banned from Tom's Hardware in the process. It said that, it has been deleted. It says posting inappropriate content to the site. This is not a news political debate site, but one dedicated to technology. Trying to pose the question as you did, green screen or not, does not negate the content. Now, they sent me that, and then this was the first thing that pops up on their page the day that I was looking into all this. It was like, oh, content, graphic, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, I just simple question, sent in, a little couple snapshots, whatever. Do you guys think this is green screen? Yes or no? And I got banned for that. So that makes me think that it's probably more green screen as well, because a website like this didn't want anything to do with answering the question, and they've answered over 500,000 tech-related questions, so they didn't want to touch that one, though. Anywho, yeah, I will leave a link for this video in the description box. I honestly think it's bullshit. I think this whole thing's bullshit. I think that this clip here, this Flames of War video that was allegedly released by ISIS, is just a piece, just a tool that they are using, something they produced to push media agenda, essentially causing the American public to fear this ISIS group. And because of that fear, the FBI and everybody else will benefit. They will get rights and the ability to do things that they normally would not be able to do. That authorization for the use of military force that they were wanting to roll out to defeat ISIS or any other group, that's the bottom line, folks. As soon as they get that clearance, it's over. Then they are allowed to engage anybody from there on out. So anyway, I know this is about a 45-minute long video probably now, and I know very few of you probably hung in there to the end. I do apologize. It's just I wanted to get this video out there. I wanted to at least to get it finished, because I'd really like to move on to something more current. Everything I tried to do had already been done by other people, so I really don't want to step on any toes, but I want to put information out there that just hasn't really been, touched upon. So anyway, thank you very much for you guys' time. Once again, I do apologize about the length of the video. I promise I will try to keep it a lot shorter from now on. And all right, guys, well, leave your comments below. Thank you very much. God bless. Take care.